Hi, my name is Peter Fischer. I'm the German ambassador to Georgia, and I'm having the interview with Movement today.
There was a historic performance.
სულ ცოტა ხნის წინ ბერლინის ფილარმონიულმა ორკესტრმა ისტორიული კონცერტი ჩაატარა საქართველოში. ფიქრობთ, რომ მათი ვიზიტი ამ ქვეყნისთვის მნიშვნელოვან დროს დაემთხვა.
It did coincide by coincidence. Of course, a concert by the Berlin Philharmonic takes a long time to prepare, and it was prepared well before the political events that we are witnessing. But the coincidence was interesting. People were waving the European flag. That was a nice response to this Europe Day concert, to this idea of sharing the joy that is Europe.
Do you observe?
აქტიურად აკვირდებით თუ არა ის რაც ხდება ახლა თბილისში. გულისხმობ უწყვეტ საპროტესტო აქციებს.
Georgia is a candidate country for the EU. That was decided last December. It was a gigantic historic step, I think for both sides, for the EU and for Georgia. As far as we know, the Georgian people have continually expressed the wish for what you call Euro-Atlantic integration, including membership of the EU. Membership of the EU is in the Georgian constitution. Last December, it looked like the aspirations of both sides are going to meet. We have an interest in Georgia joining the European Union because we say that if our neighbor does well, we are doing well. The European idea, which I'm sorry to be repetitive, is peace, democracy, rule of law, and based on that, a good development of society. We were moving in a clear direction together towards being together in the European Union. And now some question marks have come up. What does the Georgian government really want? Because some of its acts are not in accordance with the requirements to join the European Union. To join the European Union, you have to, the official language is, transpose the full body of European legislation, norms, and standards. In other words, and if you adopt laws that are contrary to European legislation, then we have an issue. Then it's difficult to join, and that's, I think, the phase we're in, and that's something that we're talking about to the Georgian government. We are here to help Georgia to meet those requirements, but of course Georgia has to want to.
მთავრობას გულისხმობთ ალბათ, ხალხს ნამდვილად უნდა.
The government acts on behalf of the people. The accession process is we have to talk to the government. Yes.
ალბათ ხედავთ ხალხის ნებას.
I'm here almost 2 years. I don't think I've ever met a Georgian who said, no, I don't think the European Union is for me. On the contrary, everyone has said, of course, of course, of course, and especially the young people.
So I saw your interview dated.
მე მოვუსმინე თქვენს ინტერვიუს, რომელიც 5 მარტს არის ჩაწერილი. თქვენ ამბობთ, რომ მას შემდეგ, რაც საქართველოს მიიღო კანდიდატის სტატუსი, კარგი იქნებოდა სწრაფი პროგრესის ხილვა, მაგალითად ზაფხულისთვის, რადგან წელს საარჩევნო წელია როგორც ევროპარლამენტში, ასევე საქართველოში. ამ დროისთვის ხედავთ თუ არა რაიმე პროგრესს?
Said Georgia has granted the candidate status in the understanding that the following 9 points will be implemented to help Georgia, to give Georgia guidance what the European Union expects in terms of getting closer to the EU in legislation, in the way institutions are set up, and so on. And unfortunately, we have to say that we see almost no progress on the 9 points to this point. Now we're in May, and the progress is hardly recognizable. Georgia is one of 10 candidate countries. 9 other countries are making more effort. We have to say that clearly. So I don't want to give up hope, but a sober assessment is that on the 9 points, the progress is too little.
And transparency of foreign influence.
კანონი უცხოური გავლენის გამჭვირვალობის შესახებ, რომელსაც ხალხი რუსულ კანონს ეძახის. ამ კანონს ასევე აკრიტიკებენ დასავლელი ლიდერები. თქვენი აზრით, რა არის ამ კანონში ისეთი, რომელიც საფრთხის ქვეშ აყენებს საქართველოს ევროპულ მომავალს?
So I don't think what this law contains because I have read it. I've read it many times. I know what the law contains, what the draft contains. Europe is based on the idea that this is essential for democracy. Civil society is lively, active, and that it is supported, and nothing is done to limit it. In the EU, we support civil society, we don't limit it. And now this law covers every not-for-profit organization, every single one except sports and blood banks, I think. So it's very, very broad. Laws that do exist, for example, in the USA and other countries, they make the first important differentiation, and that's between representation of a foreign interest or representation of interest, normal NGO activity. So representation of interest is if I sign a contract with a foreigner, I will take your money to represent your interest. Then I'm working on his behalf. That should be in a lobby register, and that is, and that's what the US FARA legislation is about. NGOs, civil society organizations, they have their own purpose. They don't have a foreigner's purpose. They are for anti-corruption, for women's rights, for the environment, for children, for free and fair elections, for musical educations, for basket weaving in Svanetian mountain villages, you name it. But it's their purpose. And they take some money, they collect money for their purpose, and some of it comes from foreign countries. That's we consider normal NGO activity, and that's what we don't want to limit. So this law, the scope is much too large. It covers all the NGOs, the media, and internet domains, and says all of you have to register, and it doesn't make that essential differentiation. The second differentiation is that the draft directive in the EU exempts financing that comes from the European Economic Area. The European draft law says money that comes from us, from our area, our club, our friends, is exempted, is not suspicious in any way. It doesn't matter if you take French money or Spanish money, it's okay. So it's a little bit surprising that Georgia, who is a candidate, who wants to join the EU, doesn't do the same thing. Doesn't say, why is money from Germany suspicious? It shouldn't be suspicious. We're friends, partners. We work together. We have the same goals, don't we? Right? That's the question. And the third issue with the law is Article 8, which has sweeping monitoring rights for the Ministry of Justice and reporting requirements for the entities that are affected by the law. It basically says the Ministry of Justice can ask further questions as it requires, once every 6 months, which is a lot. It could be an entry point for a limiting treatment of the entities that fall under the law. It could be an entry point for limiting NGOs' activities. I say could, but here we come to the European standard. We would not pass a law that could be an entry point. The European way is not to give such a tool into the hands of the government. And the fourth point is that everything is accompanied with statements that are very critical of the European Union member states, our friend and ally, the United States of America. So we have to wonder why this proposed legislation, together with these extremely critical statements. Georgia is a sovereign state. We respect Georgia's sovereignty. Georgia can pass any law that it wishes. The only reason that I'm commenting on it, because I'm from the EU. I'm from an EU member state that will have an important voice in the decision of Georgia's future path towards European integration. And therefore, as a friend, it's almost my duty to comment on what is helpful and what is not helpful. And this law is not helpful. Everyone in the EU has said so.
საქართველოს მთავრობის არგუმენტია, რომ ევროკავშირის სხვა ქვეყნებსაც აქვთ მსგავსი კანონი.
It's false. It is just an incorrect statement. Please check the facts. That's not the case.
Last year, Georgian Dream leader.
გასულ წელს ქართული ოცნების ერთ-ერთმა ლიდერმა განაცხადა, რომ ეს კანონი არასდროს დაბრუნდებოდა. მაგრამ ის დაბრუნდა ერთი წლის მერე და ხალხს ზუსტად ეს შეკითხვა აქვს. რატომ მოხდა ეს? როგორია თქვენი აზრი?
Why it was brought back?
Almost impossible to explain. It's a mystery, and I don't want to speculate about things that I don't know. But it's true that last year the government of Georgia promised, for example, to the government of Germany, face to face, the leaders of the government, this law is withdrawn and it will not come back. I don't want to speculate. Everybody knows the speculations that exist, and I imagine it's a mixture of all those things. My job is to say what is helpful in advancing towards the EU, and our hands are outstretched. Georgia, here we are. If you continue to want, we will continue to be ready and to give you any support, any guidance, any discussion, whatever you need.
ამოწყოელებს დღეს ამოძრაებთ სურვილი საქართველოში იგივე ადამიანების არახუმანური და სადისტური დიქტატურა დააბრუნონ, რასაც არაფრის ფასად არ დაუშვებთ.
Bidzina Ivaniishvili said that.
ბიძინა ივანიშვილმა 29 აპრილს დემონსტრაციაზე განაცხადა, რომ უცხოელებს სურთ დააბრუნონ არაადამიანური სადისტური დიქტატურა საქართველოში. ამდენწლიანი პარტნიორობის შემდეგ, როდესაც გესმით ეს სიტყვები, როგორ ჟღერს ის თქვენთვის?
This kind of words, how it sounds for you?
I have heard his words and I watched the speech. I don't speak Georgian, but of course I read this speech. So on my desk, I have never had anything about inhumane and sadistic activities. So what I would like to say is that Germany was the first state in 1992 where the ambassador presented credentials. It's hard to imagine a better friend and partner, more reliable for over 30 years. We've given almost 2 billion euros to this country from our taxpayers' money. The Global War Party, I've asked many times, who is the Global War Party? Is it Germany? No, it's not Germany. Is it European Union? No. Is it the US? I'd like to know who it is. Who is the Global War Party? I'd really like to know. It can't be us because we are the Global Peace Party. Europe, today is the day of the end of World War II, and Europe has been the most successful peace project in modern times, perhaps in all times.
And do you want to add something?
ბოლოს გსურთ თუ არა, რაიმე დაამატოთ.
I want to say that it's lovely to live amongst you. I feel that we get along very well. We like each other, Georgians and Germans, I would say. I guess Georgians and Europeans. Georgians are Europeans. This is my 7th foreign country that I've lived in, and some of them were non-European. That's also interesting, but when you live among Europeans, you feel at home. I remain optimistic because I do feel that Georgians prefer to join the EU than any other option.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.